You know, in every plague, there's this secret playbook. It gets passed between leaders. It's a script that's been followed for centuries. And get this, the first rule on its pages? It has nothing to do with saving lives and everything to do with saving face. This idea? It's literally thousands of years old. But man, it just perfectly explains why, time and time again, our response to a pandemic goes so horribly wrong.
So think about it for a second. What's the one thing that can take a dangerous new virus and turn it into an absolute catastrophe? What's the ingredient that transforms an outbreak into a global disaster?
It's not the virus itself. It's the lie. It's that conscious decision made by people in charge to hide the truth. That's the real killer. And this is not some new thing, not at all. When you really dig into the history of humanity's worst plagues, you find the exact same shocking pattern over and over. The deadliest lie? It's not some bug in the system. It is the system.
And look, this isn't some grand conspiracy theory. It's way more predictable than that. It's a deeply human, almost instinctual reaction. When leaders are faced with a crisis that threatens their power or their economy or just their image, they almost always choose self-preservation over public health.
All right, let's open our first case file. The year is 1918. The world is tearing itself apart in a massive war, and at the exact same time, a new, terrifying disease is silently sweeping the globe. Right off the bat, here's the first lie. It wasn't Spanish at all. Not even close. See, Spain was neutral in World War I, so its press was free to report on what was really happening. They were the only ones telling the truth. Meanwhile, countries like America, Britain, France, and Germany were censoring every single piece of news about the flu. Why? They were desperate to protect wartime morale, so they just hid the truth and let Spain take all the blame. And this censorship, it had an absolutely devastating cost. And nowhere was that clearer than in Philadelphia. City officials knew, a deadly flu was already tearing through a nearby Navy base. But a massive parade to sell war bonds was scheduled. So they had a choice: cancel the parade and save lives, or hold it to fuel the war effort.
Well, they chose the parade. They went out publicly insisting everything was fine, while sending 200,000 unsuspecting men, women, and children into the streets.
The results were immediate and absolutely horrific. Just 72 hours later, 3 days, every single hospital bed in the city was full. And in just 6 weeks, more than 12,000 people were dead. They chose propaganda over people, and that was the price.
And what about globally? Well, the pandemic that was censored to protect the war effort, it ended up killing at least twice as many people as the war itself. Some estimates say maybe even 5 times as many. Just think about that. It might be the deadliest lie in modern history. Okay, now let's fast forward to 1979. We're going deep inside the Soviet Union at the absolute height of the Cold War, a place where secrecy was basically a form of currency. See, on paper, the USSR had signed a treaty banning biological weapons. But in reality, they were running one of the biggest, most secret bioweapons programs on the entire planet. And at this top-secret facility called Compound 19, they were cooking up weaponized anthrax. Then, one morning, a technician made a tiny mistake. He forgot to replace a single air filter. So when people suddenly started dying from inhalation anthrax, the KGB just swarmed in. They confiscated all the medical records, they forced doctors to change the death certificates, and they came up with this elaborate cover story. Oh, the victims must have eaten tainted meat from the black market. They even planted fake evidence to back up their lie. In that lie, it stayed buried for 13 years, right up until the Soviet Union collapsed. It wasn't until 1992 that the new Russian president, Boris Yeltsin, finally admitted what really happened. It was a leak from a secret weapons lab. And later, investigators actually mapped out where the victims lived and found they formed a perfect plume stretching directly downwind from that secret facility. In the end, the science exposed the lie. So you've got a World War I pandemic and a Cold War bioweapon leak. I mean, totally different threats, decades apart, different governments. But when you look closer, you realize they were running the exact same play. So let's just declassify this playbook right now. It's a simple 4-step strategy for self-preservation. Step 1, deny and downplay. Step 2, silence the experts. Step 3, protect the economy. And Step 4, the most important one, control the narrative. See, it's not about stopping a virus. It's about managing perception and holding on to power. So, why? What's the real motivation here? Well, It all boils down to one thing: fear. But listen, it's not fear for us. It's their own fear. The fear of public panic, the fear of economic collapse, and maybe most of all, the fear of losing their grip on power. This whole playbook is driven by their fear, not our safety.
And here's the ultimate, tragic irony in all of this. Every single historical analysis shows the exact same thing. This playbook, it never works. It doesn't contain the damage, it doesn't make things better, it only ever makes the final outcome so much worse.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, that was the 20th century. We've got the internet now, global health organizations. Surely we've moved past all this. But have we really?
Let's look at our own lifetime. In 2003, China covered up the initial SARS outbreak for 3 critical months, which allowed it to spread across the globe. Then, in late 2019, the exact same playbook was run again. Early warnings from doctors about a strange new pneumonia were shut down by authorities. You might remember one of those doctors, Li Wenliang. He was actually forced by the police to sign a letter admitting he was spreading false rumors.
The technology changes, the leaders change, the viruses change. But that fundamental instinct to deny, to downplay, and to control the story, that seems to be timeless. This playbook isn't some dusty relic from a history book. It is sitting on the shelf right now, just waiting for the next crisis.
So here's where we are. We know another pandemic is coming. It's not a question of if, but when. And now we know exactly what the playbook of concealment looks like. So the only question left is, next time, will we be ready for the truth? Will we recognize the lie before it's too late?